Sanders back, delivers, intercepted again. Number 22, J.T. Woods, a.k.a. the Heartbreak Kid, breaking hearts of quarterbacks around the country.
This is the Coach's Smoke Barbecue Baylor pregame show on Sikkim 365 Radio.
3rd and 4, Sanders fires, tipped up, picked off by Dylan Doyle. And Doyle with another Baylor interception. That's the 3rd one of the night.
The Baylor pregame show is also presented by the Nitchie Group.
The toss, first down, and then someday gaps the defense, and he's off. Smith looked at his wrist and got time today. Wow, what a run by Abram Smith.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Wake up, everybody, it's game day. Saturday, second weekend in October. I've said throughout the week it's kind of a separation day perhaps for those in the Big 12, but elsewhere as well because of what Penn State, Iowa have at Kinnick Stadium, among some others as well. Paul Catalina to my left, Craig Smoke to my right, Armstrong Sims runs the mothership. And good morning, game day. McLean Stadium will host Baylor and West Virginia, the Big 12, both teams coming off losses last week. West Virginia at home to Texas Tech. Baylor lost their game on the road against Oklahoma State. You have 3 games in the Big 12. Texas and Oklahoma kick off at the same time at the Cotton Bowl. And TCU tonight against 6 o'clock tonight in Lubbock against what is a resurgent Texas Tech team that just 2 weeks ago was hammered in Austin 70-35. Again, coming off a night of high school football, the NFL Sunday, but today is all about college football. And we have discussed this game almost to the point where you can't discuss it much at all. Everybody across the board on Sikkim365.com, which is not always the case and usually completely the opposite in some cases, has picked Baylor to beat West Virginia. Are we picking Baylor to beat West Virginia because we think they're better because they're at home, or because perhaps we saw West Virginia lose that game at home to Texas Tech?
I'm picking Baylor because I think overall they appear to me to be the better team. I like more of what they've done offensively, even though the last couple of weeks have been a struggle. Against the better defenses that they've faced, I still feel like I've seen more offensively from Baylor than I have from West Virginia. At the same time, Gary Bohannon's got a lot to prove today, I think. I think he's got to have a very sharp game. He's been okay, but he hasn't been great the last couple of weeks. I think there's been some throws that he's missed. I think there's been some times where he's probably should have left the pocket to pick up yardage, where he's, done the thing that quarterbacks are taught to do, which is be patient. But at the same time, it's almost he's been too patient in some cases. So I think it's a bounce back type of a game for him where he's got to kind of lead the charge and make the throws and get the offense in a rhythm. So on the other side, Jarrett Doege's been very up and down. I think far more down at times than Gary has been. Baylor's had a better running game, although that's been a struggle the last couple of weeks, and that will be the case again today because they're facing arguably the top 3 defenses in the Big 12 for the 3rd straight week after already facing Iowa State and Oklahoma State, and so now West Virginia. I could go on, but I think the defenses kind of nix each other out. Maybe one's slightly better than the other. You could definitely say that West Virginia, the front line is more active, better in the backfield more than Baylor's is, but it's also some of it by design as well. So, like I said, I could go on, but I just think there's more in Baylor's favor, in my opinion. Then you add in the home factor, and I go with the Bears there.
Yeah, I think part of it is, one, it's a home game, like you said, Craig. The other thing is, I have no faith in Jarrett Doege to string together 4 quarters, which is what he's going to need to do to beat teams like Baylor. He needs to play 4 good quarters. I don't think that's really what his thing is. Jarrett Doege is what he is, and kind of like Spencer Sanders. Baylor did not take the opportunities that Spencer Sanders repeatedly gave them last week, and that's why they lost that game. But I think Jarrett Doege he had an impressive second half last week, but that was on the heels of a really bad first half. And I think teams are not really afraid of him, so they can stop Letty Brown and make Jarrett Doege beat them. I think Baylor can do that. And I do think that this week for the Baylor team was a lot of, you guys got to grow up a little bit. Like, you got to take a step, and, the coaches can only take you so far. So go ahead, buck up, and make a play. Like, go do it and stop waiting for this to happen. And with Gary Bohannon, part of it is going to be like, man, just go. Like, go be an athlete. Go do what you know you can do.
I think that early in the year, and I think it's fair to say, now we see what the tools he has. We see what he has. He also has weapons. But I think early on there was such a cleansing with the Baylor offense at the quarterback position with Charlie Brewer no longer there, and that everybody was looking for just anything else, with all due respect to Charlie, and anything he did, and he threw the ball around a little bit. There's some throws that he made that Charlie couldn't make. There's also some things. But I think we kind of like, man, this is refreshing in a way because of what they could do with Gary Bohannon. But I think that last week and the week before that in the second half against Iowa State, because the first half against Iowa State, he was really good, got it to the people he needed to get it to. But I think now, let's see where he is now. And Gary's a tremendous young man. But I do think that if this is going to be his team, when you have this coaching decision, the depth chart, and he obviously was better than everybody else, it's time for him to step up and be that guy. Not that everything that's gone on, and very little of what's gone on has been his fault, but at the same time, I think we had my God, we have somebody else at quarterback, and it looks good. Well, it's time to show that again.
Yeah, and at the same time, if people were, sold on performances against Texas State and Texas Southern and, who was even the third, or Kansas, then, I think that's being a little blind to who he was actually facing as well. You know, I mean, like if you were like watching those three games and going, oh my God, we've got the next RG3, we've got the next Nick Florence or Bryce Petty. Well, look at who they were playing. They were playing really bad teams. And that's not to say that Baylor's not a good team because they beat up on bad teams. No, they did what good teams do against bad teams. It's just that now they're playing really good teams, at least offensively, and things have gone down, not dramatically, but they've gone down. I mean, that run game has been shut down full-blown at times. And when they've needed him to make a pass to try and open that run game back up until it took, nearly 3 quarters last week for that to happen. It took nearly 3 quarters to finally get enough of a passing game going to open up the running game. They do that today, they're going to lose this football game because, West Virginia is going to score some points. And, we can say all we want to about Jarret Doege. I mean, I've said it time again, he is very inconsistent. It is – a case of which version are you going to get, because one moment he might be leading you on a touchdown drive. The next moment he's sack fumbling or throwing an interception and leading to a 17-0 Tech lead. Not that it was all on him, but it was partially on him. So for all we know, if good Jarret Doege shows up today, which he very well could, well, then Baylor's defense better be ready for that. And likewise for West Virginia and Gary Bohannon. So I think it's a great game, a really good matchup. It's not going to be the most talked about Big 12 game, but I do think it's a very interesting one because either West Virginia is going to be 0-3 in Big 12 play or Baylor's going to drop their second straight in Big 12 play and be at 1-2. So it's notable either way. Wouldn't be surprised to see West Virginia rolling here and win. I would not be surprised to see them rolling here and win, but I am going with Baylor.
If they don't, West Virginia is not 0-3 in the not only 0-3 in the Big 12, but they start to find themselves in a hole as far as being bowl eligible. They would be 2-4. And Baylor's got to be careful. I know that they had the nice start. They had the critical win against Iowa State, and that does give you a chance. But I said this yesterday, if in fact you're not careful, you could be staring at what might be a lengthy losing streak with Brigham Young coming into town, and we know how good they are, top 10 team. They have Boise State today. And then where Texas is, because they're at home, they're playing neutral against Oklahoma just up north in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, so you have, today you got this start of, this month-long home stand that you have that's not something that you really get all that often. And, you might get it in the non-conference. You don't get it like in the middle of Big 12 play typically where you got 3 home games and a bye. But that's what they have. And this is where you need to make the most out of your schedule and take full advantage of that. So, yeah, if you drop this game today, BYU, you're probably going to be underdogs next week. Good chance of that.
Yep.
And then for sure against Texas, I think, Texas looks like they're here to stay. So we'll see what happens in the Cotton Bowl, but I still feel like they'll be a very tough team to beat here in about 3 weeks or so. And then after that, you haven't played Oklahoma yet. You haven't played TCU yet. You haven't, look at Texas Tech. They might be, 5-1 here pretty soon for all we know. So who knows how they're playing at the end of the year. So, yeah, this is one of those you don't say must win, but I feel like it kind of is approaching that in some ways because I don't think they can afford to lose 2 straight, not look good. And if they look good and they lose, that's another thing. But still, starting the way they did, dropping 2 straight, and then having to face the rest of the schedule, that'd be dangerous for them.
By the way, Chris Fuentes, who's at the tailgate, Sikkim 365, there's a tailgate that's like a mile from where we are. Right over the bridge that goes over railroad tracks just off of Franklin, and then you go underneath 35. Sikkim 365 in the Brazos East parking, not Brazos East, but in the Brazos parking. They're going at it right now with Milos, with a great spread and a beer and what you need and what you want to have, soft drinks as well. There's the Sikkim 365 trailer right there off of MLK, and that place is rocking. And Chris Fuentes put up a story in the premium section. He said, I love Sikkim 365, and I kind of read it. It's a story about the tickets. Our website went out and purchased, I think, hundreds of tickets for this game. A lot of them from the berm, but not just the berm, underneath the main scoreboard or the big scoreboard. But he ran into somebody, and giving them tickets made maybe their next few weeks. We'll have Chris tell us that story momentarily. We will also hear from former Baylor quarterback and color analyst J.J. Joe today, and Jed Drennan, who covers West Virginia, on breaking down the Mountaineers and their team coming off the loss to Texas Tech and who they are. I said 20-16, I think is what I said. We all have picked in this game Baylor. Last week, everyone picked Oklahoma State that I can remember. Not everybody, but we did. And I also picked Iowa State, as the three of us did. We were wrong a couple of weeks ago on that one. Yeah,
I didn't get my final prediction in. It's just I didn't get around to it, but I am picking Baylor. I hadn't thought of a final score really, but I do feel like it would be somewhere in the range of a 27-17, 27-20, somewhere in that. I don't think anybody's breaking 30. I would be surprised to see that with these two defenses, but you never know. It's any given Saturday.
All right, so Texas, Oklahoma at the Cotton Bowl, a very intriguing game. Oklahoma is undefeated, ranked 6th in the country, and people are throwing darts at them. Texas had more than darts thrown at them when they were hammered by Arkansas and Fayetteville, and I mean beat the hell up. But they have regrouped, been able to get back on track, and they've had a couple of nice conference wins, blowing out Texas Tech, and then also beating TCU, who has owned them the last decade. They were 7-2 against Texas, and Texas's Bijan Robinson unleashed and had himself over 200 yards. So that's going on as well today. Armstrong and Paul and Cray, let's take a break, come back with Chris Fuentes. Then we're going to hear from J.J. Joe. We'll come back with Chris Fuentes and a story about giving back, about Sikkim 365 and tickets. Remember, they did open up the berm tickets this week. They won't do that every week. A lot of times they were going to reserve it for students. That's been another story in itself. And you know what I hope happens if, in fact, Baylor does win today? That the message boards are about beating somebody and not about all the complaints going on around the stadium, because it was like that after the Iowa State game. But again, that's just me. This is Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 2021 Ram brand just received first place in the prestigious J.D. Power's initial quality study. The Dodge brand finished second to Ram, and the 2021 Jeep Gladiator is first among all midsize trucks. Quality and Ram Power Days, only at Allen Samuels, 201 West Loop 340.
Come by, let's be friends.
It's football season. Sports bettors and BetUS.com has your NFL and college football live betting lines up for their 27th year. Why BetUS.com? Well, they're the 3-decade leader, and you can join now for a 125% bonus on promo code SICKM125 with cash, or a 200% bonus on crypto with SICKM200. The 3-decade leader with action on every sport across the world. We can pretty much guarantee that they've got your game at BetUS.com. Use promo code SICKM125 or SICKM200.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
With more than 160,000 alumni worldwide and counting, the Baylor family is growing. And through the university's expanded Baylor Alumni Program, the family is growing closer. With hundreds of local volunteers planning events in cities and towns around the country, you can gather with fellow Bears no matter where you are. So, get connected, get something started, get involved, and make plans to get together with Baylor alumni. Visit us at baylor.edu/alumni.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Call us on the BetUS hotline, 254-339-1122.
All right, here we go. Let's go with a couple of the chat room, and then Chris Fuentes is going to join us here momentarily on a great story. It really was an incredible week for what Colt Barber, Ashley Hodge, and Brian Etheridge did for Sikkim 365. Scotty B, I got a game-worn Baylor jersey on right now. Paul said, I hope you washed it first. Hill Country, Aggie, gig 'em. Gary Lewis, back the pack and hook 'em. Jay, hook 'em. Here all for all the smoke today. Lost Aggie 66, Oklahoma. OU all the way, Boomer Sooner. Oh. All right, here's Max.
Yeah, I'd imagine there are going to be quite a few A&M fans rooting for Oklahoma today.
Yeah.
Last thing they want to see is Texas get a big win over the Sooners and then be back
immediately,
so to speak. But yeah, A&M, tough one coming up.
Yeah, they have Alabama tonight at 7, I think it is. Ouch. Gary Lewis last night didn't catch which exact high school you were doing, but Mansfield has how many schools now? Like 8 or so as they beat Midway. Chris, give us a couple more seconds. This is Gary rooting for the Bears today. Hope Bohannon has a better showing. Worried, though, West Virginia lets Garrett Green play quarterback. I like Green. He's a difference maker. Go back to the part with Mansfield.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see Garrett Green in running situations at times, given just what West Virginia's done at this point. But, I mean, I do think it would be a wrinkle to try and have him throw it a little bit, but that's also why he's not the starter, is because they don't have full confidence in him throwing all the time. But, yeah, we'll definitely see Garrett Green. And to answer the Mansfield question, what is it now? Is it 5 or 6 schools?
Well, I can lose track. There's Legacy, where Jeff Hume is now coaching. There's Mansfield Timberview, which had the situation that was scary earlier this week. They played actually in Waco against University High, won big. There's Summit. There's also
Mansfield High.
Lake Ridge, Mansfield High, and it's growing. It's like Frisco used to be one school. It's like Plano used to be one school. Now there's 3 of them with over 5,000 students, and there would be more. Kyler, and then we go to Chris. Kyler, let's go. Boomer Sooner beat Texas.
I can't wait to see this game. I'm fascinated by this matchup. The matchups are good every year just because it's Oklahoma and Texas, but this one's like really curious, for both sides.
It's almost even. Like, yeah. I mean, there's a sense that whoever wins the game is going to be, it's evenly matched, as opposed to years past where whoever wasn't supposed to win, it was a shocker. Whoever wins today, it won't shock anybody.
No, because I think
and they'll be the odds-on favorite moving forward.
And also, let's also be honest. You're 3-0, but Oklahoma State's sitting there. They're playing well. Iowa State's not done with this.
No.
And who knows, based on if Baylor can win, to jump back in it, because they have Baylor and Texas in 3 weeks. And then Oklahoma State, Texas, and Austin next week. So for UT, with Oklahoma State on their schedule next, a nice, important game for them if they're going to stay atop the Big 12 standings. Chris Fuentes, one of the great fans in Baylor Nation, great basketball fan. We've had Chris on. We talked to him. In fact, we had him on after they won the whole thing, and he was nearly, in fact, he was in tears. He joins us because Sikkim365.com bought hundreds of tickets this week for the game between Baylor and West Virginia, and Chris had some of those. Chris, thanks for your time. Good morning. How's the tailgate starting? Everyone drinking water and coffee?
Yeah, we'll say water and coffee. And Hodge is taking on all the players in the Papa Shot. He hasn't lost one yet, so I'm sure you're surprised at that.
Yeah, no, Baylor's basketball team, by the way, the men's basketball team is there for a meet and greet and taking pictures as well. So you know that Matthew Meyer, Adam Flagler, and some of those are there, young kids, the transfer in Akinjo, among many others.
Oh, yeah.
So, and you have a story about tickets. You had some tickets. We distributed a lot of them. I know Jack McKenzie went around to some of the local high schools and organizations and gave out some tickets for those to go to the game this week. What's your story? Share it with us, Chris.
Yes, sir. So when I saw Colt post about possibly buying some of these tickets for the berm and just handing them out, I thought that was a fantastic idea. And I said, listen, if there is an opportunity for me to help distribute some of those working at a school, you know, I can find homes for these tickets. And so I actually had about 250 dropped off to me at school, and I just passed them out in the dismissal line, and families were just gobbling them up. And, you know, had one particular person drive through, recognized the parent, knew that their oldest student, who's actually a high school student now, big Baylor fan, always wore, you know, stuff on Spirit Day. And I was like, you know what? I definitely got to ask this family. And so I had her roll down the window and I said, hey, good morning or good afternoon. Sorry. Good afternoon. Hey, I've got some Baylor tickets for the game tomorrow. Would y'all be interested? And she kind of looked at me and said, well, what's the catch? You know, how much are they? And I said, they're free. And like, she was just caught off guard. She wasn't ready for that. And, you know, it ended up, it had been a pretty tough week for the family. And they were looking for something to kind of just turn their week around and have them a little break from whatever they had been facing. And, you know, now we have a family of 5 coming to the game, first game ever at McLean, and they're getting to come and just have something to look forward to. And it was something that I really appreciated being a part of. And, you know, and that's what Baylor needs, is we need to reach out and have these moments and connect with these families in the community, because there's a lot of, I'm sure there's a ton of these stories that could be out there potentially.
Well, you got to get them young, Chris, right? You got to start them early, get them obsessed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's pretty awesome. And plus, for you, and you teach pretty young kids, right? So the berm is kind of perfect for them.
Oh, for sure. So I've got pre-K 3 through 8th grade students on my campus, so I have a wide range. And, you know, I hit up multiple families, so I've got some young ones. I've got some older ones coming too. And, you know, the kids were very appreciative. You know, they were pretty excited when they found out. Got a couple of messages from my school saying that they'd appreciated, you know, the opportunity to go. And it's just, that's what it's all about, man. It really is. And, you know, giving these people an opportunity to experience something that they haven't gotten to experience. And, you know, in the long run, these were $5 tickets that we bought up and handed out. But to some of these families, this is more than a $5 ticket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just really, really cool to be a part of. And, you know, I've had so many positive experiences with our fan base. I've had so many people help me out, whether it's been, hey, why don't you come up to the game? I've got your ticket for you, or things like that back in the day. And, you know, I'm just trying to pay it forward as people help me out. I'm just trying to do a little bit of the same.
All right, Chris, I'm about to make Armstrong have heartburn, and Paul's going to panic and maybe say things, and Craig's chilling with me right here on the set. Can we flip him to FaceTime? Is that possible?
I'm on an Android. I don't have an iPhone.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
no.
So the answer to that is no.
Sorry.
Well, we just had
Yes,
a
sir.
text that said you guys need a remote feed from the tailgate, and that's a great point. We could do that maybe for the game next week against Brigham Young. By the way, hey, Chris, thanks for sharing the story. You're a giver. I mean, you are. I know people have, as you said, have given to you, but you're a giver, and I know that the men's basketball team, that's really your kind of your heartthrob and what you do with Baylor, but I know you love the football program and athletics across the board. So Milo's is having the spread. Can you kind of explain what's a part of the spread today?
Yeah, so we've got some breakfast tacos out here. We've got beverages of all varieties, and the people are just having a good time, man. We're got people in the chairs, got people playing Papa Shot, ping pong. And of course, you've got the players out here. Just a good scene, and it's a good way to start off the day because I'm a fan of 11 a.m. kickoffs, especially if we win. That gives us the opportunity to come back and celebrate afterwards.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to that because we're going to get that big W today and get that taste out of our mouth in Stillwater.
Chris, take a selfie with some of the players, and we'll put it up on the screen here so everyone can see where you are. If you don't mind sending that to Paul and or me, and we'll get that up on the screen, okay?
Sounds great. We'll do it.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate the story. Chris Fuentes, one of the best when it comes. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Baylor fans are like that. His thread was labeled, I love 365, ... Then he went into the story, and there's been a bunch of people that love the feedback on what he did with those tickets for a family and for hundreds of other people as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of people struggling. There's a lot of have-nots out there. That's actually the majority of us out there are the have-nots. So, yeah, you don't know, especially for people that go to games regularly, especially for people who, a lot of people drive by and they see them with their full-blown setups. And, look, a lot of those people worked hard to have those setups and all that, but it's just not everybody has that opportunity. And you'd be surprised by how many people just here in Waco have never been to a Baylor football game.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think it's cool that he's done that. And, they all chipped in to do that, and Jack was running around spreading the love, to the local high schools. I think that's a really cool idea, and community outreach is a major thing. So glad for the website to be a part of that. And I just saw where, as well, if you're at the game today in section 115, they're going to have the Heisman Trophy that you can take pictures with, I guess, and that'll be section 115 according to Baylor Athletics. So just another little thing for those attending today's game.
I do want to say this as well, and we'll go back to the chat because a bunch of you are fired up about a lot of things today, which is great. When back before RG3 and Baylor made their run, Baylor and the city of Waco were disconnected, and it's documented. But when they started winning in football, that started to change, and then you had the unicorn in Robert Griffin III, and then you had a team that basically took on almost the personality of Waco, Texas, a chip on their shoulder, overlooked, spit on, kicked sand in their face. And it changed, and it didn't happen overnight. It took some time. I've seen a couple of people mention that there's still somewhat of a disconnect between Waco and Baylor. There's been a lot that's happened within Baylor athletics, and some people now don't trust who or there. Or I've seen more. The story I always say, I went to HEB on Wooded Acres one day. Everything was Texas A&M in Texas. Everything. There was an area up front. There was nothing Baylor. In 2011, that did change where there was all these Baylor bookstore type setups, right? So it was a disconnect. There still is work to be done, but there's a much better relationship. That doesn't mean everybody likes Baylor. No, they don't. But it's a lot better than it was a decade ago, but it could always get better as well.
Yeah, and most people are not going to have, really any idea about that. But, I mean, put it this way. Baylor sucked for a really long time. They were the worst football team in college football for various periods. And, meanwhile, Texas and A&M were winning big. So guess who a lot of kids in Waco grew up rooting for? The teams that were winning. Like, it's really that simple. Winning cures everything. All of a sudden, Baylor is not selling out Floyd Casey ever, and all of a sudden there's all these people that just why'd that happen? Oh, they won games. Imagine that. Like, that's really all it is.
17 years without a bowl game.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, here's a packed stadium. I mean, it's pretty simple. And, you know,
and a new stadium, yeah.
And how many of those people that are suddenly showing up in green and gold were wearing burnt orange like 2 years? Yeah, exactly.
Yep,
so, I mean, that's just the way that it is. So, as much as there's a disconnect, and there's the Baylor bubble and all that, I think that's the case at a lot of schools and college towns around the country. But winning cures everything.
Gary Lewis, do Baylor college football fans wish the offensive coordinator would open up the offense more, throw on early downs, double passes, reverses, etc., shovel passes? I do think that sometimes when you see flea flickers, everyone just feels like the offense is better. Sometimes you have to do that, and sometimes you set up a play early in the game for that play later on that might hit you. They have to do something because offensively for now three halves, they have been for the most part shut down. Also, I'm regionally biased. I just lost.
I mean, I think people want to see the offense open up, but I think people also don't have a real idea of what that means. Like, they think they're playing Madden and that you can just, no matter what your offense is, just run like a trick play on second down. And it's like, no, that's not what the offense does, and that's not how it works. And it's not just as simple as like, we just need to pass the ball, you know? And I'm not demeaning the question at all. It's just that fans are weird like that, and I think that most people who have given it an honest viewpoint know that Jeff Grimes' offense operates a certain way. And it's not so much about the play calls, although that was the case at times last week. Certainly, there have been people grumbling about that. But it's more about the execution side of things than it has been about play calls. But, hey, if they struggle like they did the last 6 quarters, then you're going to hear a lot of play call talk. You're going to hear a whole lot of stuff coming up. And you know what? Some of it would be justified.
He was a genius in the first half against Iowa State.
Sure.
I even said they threw almost a perfect game, and now you start to not do things, and then you lose a game, and then all of a sudden that's part of the business. He knows that.
The biggest difference to me with the first half of Iowa State in the last 6 quarters is Gary Bohannon.
Yeah.
And if you look at what we did, J.D. Piquel did a great thing on the Big 1-2 when he looked at Jeff Grimes' offense last year at BYU and why Zach Wilson, in spite of the fact that he's got a laser rocket cannon attached to his body, was so effective was that teams did not know what to guard against. They did not know, like they couldn't pick their spot to, okay, we're not going to get beat this way. So they're trying to. It's hard to guard against everything. And so what was happening was, okay, we're not very good we're a little better against the pass than we are against the run. So let's make sure we sell out against the run and make them pass. Well, Zach Wilson's going to beat you. All right, well, let's back off and not let him throw deep. Well, then you just get that RVO over and over and over again. Well, the last 6 quarters, the defense at Iowa State and the defense against Oklahoma State didn't have to worry about Gary Bohannon beating them deep and some of those things. And I think that it's hurt them. I think that's what – and I don't know if it's necessarily Gary Bohannon. Those receivers have to start winning.
Yes, I understand. That's what we said all of last year, and we even said sometimes before that. But one of the things as well, as I've said this, Gary Bohannon, no question, gives him a chance to do some things because of what he can do. But you got to do it. It's like a pitcher with a 90-mile-an-hour fastball or 98-mile-an-hour fastball. That's great, but can you throw strikes? He did in the first half against Iowa State. It's not Gary as well. The offensive line, a little bit more time. Sometimes it's time to take off rather than one of his strengths is he's not afraid to stay in the pocket. Let's do 2 or 3 more, 5 or 6 more chats, and then we come back with JJ Joe. I'm regionally biased. I asked the question, who among the teams in the Big 12 do you feel like can run the table? I'm talking not just if you're undefeated. I'm talking Iowa State, Baylor, whoever, along with Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and Texas. I'm regionally biased, but I think that Texas is best equipped to nudge by Oklahoma State and Oklahoma to win the Big 12. In my opinion, Oklahoma State has the best defense, but Texas with Bijan Robinson is the most balanced Big 12 football team. From Gary as well, who can parse that hair's breadth differences between Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas, and even brought in TCU. And, of course, TCU losing last week to Texas.
So that's 2 different questions there.
Just a couple of them, yeah.
I mean, I think I would probably go with Texas as well as far as the best bet to win out if you have to pick somebody, although Iowa State's very tempting as well. I think Iowa State coming off of a open week next week will be interesting to see. Them having a chance to regroup a little bit this week. So, yeah, if I had to put money down, I'd probably put Texas. I mean, just the talent level and the amount of confidence they're playing with. But obviously that could end in 5 hours from now. But that's who I'd probably place my money on, yeah.
And it's interesting because they were crushed by Arkansas.
And I really like Oklahoma State. I just,
Yeah.
I'm just not completely
But that
like
game
ready
is
to.
in Austin. And
Yeah, I'm just not ready to go all in with them just yet. I think they're really good, and I think the Big 12 is just so wide open. It's kind of hard to just be very matter of fact about one team because I honestly do think there's like 4 or 5 teams on any given week that you could say like, yeah, they're the best team right now in the Big 12.
And no matter who wins at the Cotton Bowl, that doesn't mean that they're the favorite. It's because you're talking about a couple of logos. But if Oklahoma does win, despite some of the warts they've shown, then you kind of, they're right back to where they have been so many times before. Stephen we were asked on the chat room about why the game's always early. Because of drinking, because it's a massive party outside the Cotton Bowl. Last year, 25% capacity. I've been there. It's an incredible atmosphere. Better to play the game at 11 o'clock, let everyone get toasted, watch the game, and then hang around the fair, the Texas State Fair, the rest of the way. Someone said I miss Floyd Casey Stadium. As someone with the amenities we get to use in the media, I don't. We had some pretty tough setups to watch and cover the games. And I'm talking about just from our perspective in the media.
I don't miss it from any perspective. I mean, if I was a fan, I wouldn't miss that stadium at all. No.
Gary Lewis, J.D. Piquel's college football content is educational, substantive, not filler material.
No, it's not. He's doing a great job.
Keith, good morning, fellas. Good morning, Keith. Sooner Dave, Oklahoma City, Big 12 champion, will have 2 losses, in my opinion. Wow, because they all might just beat each other up. We've seen that there as well.
Yeah, we skipped over one. There was that 2-parter that I only answered the Texas part, I said I'd favor Texas. But, trying to get to as many of these as we can. But I forget what that other part of it was a few minutes ago.
Who has the best defense? Who has the best offense?
That wasn't it. But I'd say, best. Who does have the best offense right now? It'd be Texas and.
I think there's 4 or 5 teams on the defensive side.
Yeah, defense, I think you could just kind of flip a coin. Iowa State, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and I'd probably stop there for right now. And then I think that second tier of like Baylor and Oklahoma and, those teams. But, yeah, I think it's like a 3-headed monster, so to speak, on the defensive side. Offensively, though, I go Texas.
I think right now with their weapons at this point, and now – today, we might change our mind completely on who has the best defense if Oklahoma somehow shackles them up a little bit. Paul?
All right, let's go to the BetUS car line. Steven at the tailgate, he knows
he's here.
He knows where the building is, too, so that's pretty scary.
Hey, guys. I don't think I can show up again. Paul already let me in once, so I blew my shot. It would have been nice to see Smokey and Craig in person, but y'all know how to lock the doors and know that I know where it is now. I just am so excited, and let's see a win today. Sick 'em Bears. I've got no pick, but this has been the greatest weekend of my life, and I'm just so excited to be here. I never thought this beautiful stadium or anything was possible, and sick 'em Bears. I'm really excited to be watching y'all right now. Take it easy.
Steven, great to have you not only, as always, from day one on the show, but also welcome back to Waco, Texas. That's awesome. Good for him.
Yeah, Steven, appreciate you.
You let him in the building, Paul? Go ahead.
Yeah, we let him in the building yesterday.
Yeah, Steven, appreciate you and your loyalty and, listening as much as you do. And glad to have you here in Waco and hope you're having a lot of fun. It sounds like you are, man. So big ups to you and thanks as always.
All right, when we come back, we'll hear from former Baylor quarterback and Baylor radio color analyst J.J. Joe, Jed Drenning, who covers West Virginia, their sideline reporter, also Sikkim 365 Radio, and the show brought to you by Coach's Smoke Barbecue.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed, smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. And a long business meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio with socially distanced seating for your enjoyment. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton. You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
And Craig Smoke.
All right, this 4 o'clock hour. J.J. Joe, former Baylor quarterback, Baylor radio color analyst, joins us. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. J.J., thank you, sir, for your time. So Estrada all of a sudden shows up, and there's nothing involving the statistical line of R.J. Sneed. Tyquan Thornton had 3 catches. Ebner had no yards rushing. Was that Oklahoma State's defense, or did Baylor get out of whack on offense?
Hey, Smoke, guys. Hey, thanks for having me on again. It's always a joy to join. I'll tell you, offensively, Smoke, we just weren't in rhythm. I mean, we started great. We had a 7-yard run by Abram Smith. Then we had the 7-yard catch by Estrada. And Estrada's he's good. I think really what you'll see is he and Josh Fleeks will have to vie for time because, R.J. Sneed's going to play, Tyquan's going to play. But I think they really focused on those outside guys, and Drew had some opportunity. He did move outside some, and he just made a play. He was the one guy that made a play. But overall, Oklahoma State did what Iowa State did in that second half, and they really attacked us. And I think we just weren't fully ready for, kind of what they brought to the table.
JJ, is it time to maybe take the training wheels off of Gary Bohannon?
Well, I wouldn't say that Coach has training wheels on him. I think, Coach is trying to make sure that, as he is a first-time starter, as he as he gets the offense down where he wants to, where he actually masters it. I think he's just kind of trying to make sure he manages the game with Gary. But now I would agree. I really think that a coach is going to have to, tell Gary, hey, look, you're a fourth-year player. We've been here through the spring and the summer. You're going to have to do a little bit more, whether that be at the line of scrimmage, maybe making a few changes, whether that be, throwing the ball in different situations, because we've really been able to dictate when we wanted to throw it. And this week was the very first time we really had to do much of the third and long type offense, but roll that package out. But I think, Gary's going to, if this team wants to go where they would need to go, where Coach Aranda wants them to go, Gary's going to have to go ahead and be willing to, take a little bit more of the responsibility.
JJ, I know you just touched on it there with Estrada. I mean, he ate some of the other players' touches by being involved really for the first time. But R.J. Sneed didn't have a catch for the first time since 2018. Is that insane to you, or just a crazy stat to me?
Well, he should go talk to somebody. He could have ran him a little smoke screen or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To get himself. But I know there was a contested game, so you're just not thinking about that kind of stuff. But in any case, Oklahoma State is very aggressive, and I knew coming in they were aggressive, and Iowa State was not. Iowa State actually their first half played right into how we wanted to play offense. They wanted to read, they wanted to sit back and react, and that played into Baylor's offense, the offensive philosophy's hands. Oklahoma State's different, West Virginia's different, Texas will be different, Oklahoma will be different, and I think that was a great lesson. That hey, look, the Big 12 teams with these hybrid guys, for the most part, are not going to play like Iowa State. And a lot of times Kansas State played like that, where they sit back, read, bend, don't break. So you got to be prepared for teams to go downhill at you in the run game, as well as when it's passing down. So, R.J. Sneed not getting the catch, that won't happen again, not this season.
It's part of growing up. It's a young team. I asked Dave Aranda this on Monday, and Paul kind of alluded to this with Gary Bohannon, but he had an edge to him, JJ. After the game, he was obviously upset about the Matt Jones penalty, as he should have been, because he's been preaching that. And then he was still kind of in that mode on Monday. Did you see kind of a different edge to him? And it's almost like, okay, I've been saying this, and now I'm done saying it. We have to go do it.
Exactly. Matter of fact, Smoke, I don't know if you guys caught it. He didn't do a halftime interview.
We did.
Yeah, he was irritated. Ricky was trying to catch him, and I think he just snuck by Ricky. And I could tell. I mean, he was a little edgy. I forget which game it was. I think it may have been Iowa State, but he was a little edgy in one of the games. But that's the first time we've actually had that happen quite a bit. So he's a little irritated, because I can tell he really is talking about those penalties. If you remember, he took Matt out immediately. I mean, Matt ran back out, and he took him out. And then when you go look at that penalty line, and I know it just irritates him, because he looks at it and says, hey, despite the way we played offensively, we had the ball twice down 3 with a chance to go ahead. And we didn't play good. He probably really didn't feel like they played good football. So he's been preaching it's going to cost us. It cost the team the other night. And that's, I'm pretty sure he really has emphasized that over the last few days.
Is it maybe, it's a weird way to say this, and maybe around, I asked Ricky this the other day, that he has now an example to say, like, guys, I've been telling you this, I've been telling you this, and now you can see it in action and not just theory.
Well, yeah, that. I mean, you got the example. We have the example with Texas State. Like, if we play like this, a team that's of a lesser quality, I guess, for lack of a better term, will stay with us. But then, like you just said, Paul, I mean, it reared its ugly head and it bit you, because when you play a good team, and really for the most part, they're going to play good teams here on out, or teams that can beat you. People think about Tech struggling. Well, Tech just beat West Virginia. West Virginia's 1-3, but they're darn good 1-3 teams. So he does have that example. But I think more than that, I think Coach, man, somebody asked me, what about Coach Rand? I said, man, this dude's just a football coach. There's some guys who are head coaches. This guy's just a football coach, and he has a certain way he wants it to style and demeanor and character and all that he wants to play. And outside of, hey, I've been telling you it's going to bite you to bit you, he wants to win a certain way. And if you don't win that way, he's going to be on you more about that than anything else.
JJ, Jarrett Daigie's had, a bit of an up and down career at West Virginia, but last week he did have a huge second half to pull them within, a chance to win that football game despite the 17-0 early deficit. He's capable of throwing the ball around, and West Virginia's always got a good fleet of receivers. Letty Brown's back at running back, but the run game has been a struggle. At the same time, Baylor's defense has given up a lot of rushing yards the last couple of weeks. What are you looking for with the Baylor defense this week, and what areas maybe from last week do you think they need to clean up?
Yeah, I really think the Baylor defense, Oklahoma State got, 406 yards. But if you look at the game, our defense, they turned them over 3 times, had some untimely penalties. And really after that second half, after they got those 2 scores, really until that last drive that sealed the game, they had 3 points. And I think I wrote something for Ashton on Second 365 today that up until Baylor, when Baylor went for it on 4th down, I think it was about maybe 8 minutes to go in the fourth, Oklahoma State had maybe 117 yards in the second half. So defensively, yes, there's always things we can do to clean up. There's some things they can play better. They can defend the run better. But I think our defense is playing winning football. Offensively, you got to if you get a team to 17 points late in the fourth, you got to make that win. You got to make that win. And offensively, we didn't make it win. Coach did everything he could do. He went for it on 4th down. He did everything he could do. So defensively, I really would like maybe. If you said if I was just kind of nitpicking, I would say I would like for our front to continue to improve. I think Apu and Utley and Chitty and Cole Maxwell, Ashton Logan plays that jack position. They're playing better. They're playing good football. The backers are playing well. But to have Terrell Bernard back will help. But I would like to see our team, our front, really start putting pressure. Really what I would call aggressive pressure without Coach having to call blitzes. If I had a nitpick, and that's nitpicking now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, Craig, aren't you the one that brought that up even after a couple of the non-conference games, that might have come back to haunt them a little bit. But they did get 3 turnovers, and I guess that's also bad because...
I just think that the turnovers are great, but they also were, deep into your territory, and they were like saving graces when Oklahoma State was in a position to score. So if teams have been able to, or at least Oklahoma State was able to move the football a bit, and then the turnovers really, I think, JJ kind of saved that from being a way uglier game than it could have been, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, you're right. Now, I'm not going to disagree, but when a team gets 3 turnovers, part of that is playing defense because Spencer Sanders doesn't make that. He doesn't throw that first interception if the pressure doesn't come. And I forgot the player who hit him, but if that pressure doesn't come, he doesn't throw that. So that's defense. And then a couple others. Those were good defensive plays. And you're right that they moved the ball, but at the end of the day, what you want to do is force a team to either kick a field goal or turn it over. Mm-hmm. And defensively, the defense against Iowa State got some points, 29, but they were forcing them to kick field goals for a while. Right. And then the second half, think about it, the offense really didn't do much of anything.
Mm-hmm. No.
This week, the offense didn't do much of anything in the whole first half. That's pressure on your D.
JJ, as a player, you've been in the locker room. You are obviously among the leaders when you were there, starting quarterback. What do you say? There's not much to say when a player who plays his ass off, excuse my language, in Matt Jones, who's all over the place and has done a great job with Terrell Bernard being out, who's supposed to be back this week. Does anything have to be said to a player who makes a boneheaded play like that?
Their coach is going to handle it. But let me say this, Smoke. In a locker room, you have all types of guys. You have guys who are thinking every second. You have guys who are critical, analytical, and then you have those guys who are just football players. They don't think until it's over. And you got to have them. And I'm not saying Matt is that kind of guy, but typically they're linebackers and, certain
fullbacks.
Types. Yeah, thank you. And the Smoke, really outside of telling Matt, Matt, hey, man, you're hurting us, don't hurt us. And his teammates saying, don't hurt us. And his teammates have to help govern him.
Right.
Because I can tell you, when Matt gets in the game, he's emotionally invested. Everything is personal. And you got to have guys like him, and you can't sit him on the bench. You cannot sit him on the bench because those type of guys, you got to have that energy, you got to have that focus, and you just got to have a team of guys that are around him that can help manage him. And he'll get there. He's a sophomore? I mean, he'll get there and learn it, how to govern it, but man, you just got to have a group of guys that help you manage him while on the field.
Yeah, it's a game in which it's so violent, and I know they've changed it up a little bit, but I mean, I'd rather have them than not. It's just a matter of, you could lose a game because of a temper tantrum or a personal foul, and I'm not trying to blame him. I know Dave Aranda made it pretty clear that play cost him the game, but yeah, you don't want to temper him so much he loses who he is as a football player.
Yeah, exactly, Smoke. And look, Matt will mature more. I mean, I think he played some last year, helped me out here, but I mean, this is the first real action I think Matt is getting. He got some, so he'll get there, and coach is coaching him. Now, don't get me wrong when I say you can't sit him down. Coach he'll limit his playing time some. He'll see some, but ultimately, you just don't have a team full of like guys who can play like Matt Jones. And if you don't have this in Alabama, Alabama can roll 6 or 7 of those guys in probably. So when you got a guy like that, you're just trying to hope that he hurry up and he matures, and that you have teammates like Terrell Bernard, Jalen Petrie, Dylan Doyle, and guys who are a little bit more level-headed that will help calm him down when it gets edgy.
Yeah, if you got a guy who's a wild dog, you want him to go out there and be a wild dog. You just hope that, maybe he doesn't bite too much. I think that's with Matt Jones. I don't know if you saw it, JJ, but the play before he committed the penalty, they were pulling him off. I mean, he was getting pulled. He was already was already hot about something. And then, there weren't enough plays between the time he made tackles to calm him down from whatever happened before.
Yeah, and probably what coach will have to do, he'll probably have to manage his playing time, meaning that he maybe gets subbed a little bit more, right? Maybe you sub him, maybe you don't keep him in a certain string of plays, but yeah, he actually, I mean, and it looks like when I saw the play, I looked at it on tape. It went to the sideline, he was on top of, he did something, looks like. Then he got up, and then it's like I saw the Baylor sideline guys were pushing him back because he said something. And then the ref came over. It sounded like he said something else. I don't know if he swung or the ref caught some wind of some language, but then that's when the flag came. So he, you just got to have some guys help manage him, man. But he will have to mature, which he'll do.
JJ, appreciate it. Ought to be interesting. They have 4 weeks at home. An off week.
That's great.
After back-to-back off week, and then home again with Texas. But if they're gonna jump right back in it surely is right there in front of them. And with getting Terrell Bernard appears to be back, that sure doesn't hurt either.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed, smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. In a long business meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio with socially distanced seating for your enjoyment. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton. You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
That picture you see is us spying on you on the corner of MLK and Elm. We're right there on the corner where you see the yellow pole. Is that us, Armstrong? That's us. Right there. We're right outside of our door. Right across the Washington Avenue Bridge. And just to the left of that, where the cars are driving through towards, there's the renovated Martin Luther King Bridge and Plaza, which is still in progress before they open that up. Craig Smoke, David Smoke, Paul Catalina, Sikkim 365 Radio. And the chat room continues. All right, we've talked a lot about Texas OU, Baylor, and West Virginia. What about this TCU at Texas Tech game? What does Gary Patterson do to try to get his team back on track in Texas Tech coming off the very important win in Morgantown?
Give Zach Evans 20 carries and they win the game.
I don't want to do that. He's got to be there for 4 years, and you don't want to burn him out, because he's going to be gone after next year. Like, not even. I don't even know if he'll be on TCU's roster next year, honestly. I mean, who knows? But, yeah, I think for TCU, it's been, been a little up and down, no doubt about it. And I think I would have easily picked TCU to win this game, and I'll pick TCU to win this game. But the way Texas Tech is playing as of late, they're fighting. They're fighting despite a boatload of injuries to key players, whether it be Tyler Shuck, quarterback, or their starting safety. Various guys have missed time. Running backs have missed time. So Ezenkama missed time last week, but luckily they had Kalen Geiger, who's been a very good bright spot for them at wide receiver. So, yeah, I mean, Texas Tech's scrappy, given all that they've been dealing with, and a coach on the hot seat. So, being homecoming, being in Lubbock, being an evening game, I think all that adds up to, not being fully confident that TCU just rolls in there and wins that game. So, I'll pick the Frogs, but, yeah, I definitely give the Red Raiders a chance, obviously.
It says a lot. Matt Wells is under fire. We've had lists, Paul. You've done top 5. We've discussed it. The chat room's discussed it. Text messages, the board. Coach is under fire. What does it say, though, that Texas Tech, hammered by Texas, they go on the road, their coach is under fire, their quarterback is out, and they win the game? And they opened up with a 17-0 first half. I don't know if that says West Virginia had a hangover from losing in Norman, or it says quite a bit about what Matt Wills and his football team are going to do. Hey, we're going to go down fighting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably a little bit of both. I mean, I think that West Virginia is trying to find themselves, and I think that Texas Tech, came out and they fought early and they fought late, and that's what you had to do. They didn't really in the middle, but they were good enough to get it done. I'm interested to see if they can catch TCU in a similar doldrum after two straight losses and a defense which, bafflingly to Gary Patterson and a lot of people, isn't very effective.
Yeah, I think it says that West Virginia made a couple of huge mistakes early, and Texas Tech took advantage of it, and then they weren't really able to take the game away after that, given the fact that they needed a field goal at the end to win it. They got up 17-0, and then what was the final score? 23-20.
20-17 or
20,
yeah,
whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was a field goal at the end. I mean, and you were up 17-0. So I think it says that they jumped out to an early lead and took full advantage of some mistakes, and they were good enough to keep that lead no matter West Virginia's comeback or not. And I think it says that they fight and they're scrappy, like I said, but I don't know that it says too much else, because you can look at that game one of two ways. It's like, yeah, they went and won on the road and beat a very good West Virginia team, but take away like 2 plays and that game's entirely different. And look, it comes down to one play sometimes. So I get that, but they were very fortunate to hold on to win that game. So I don't really know what to make of Tech. I don't think that they are like upper tier talent wise, but I think they're very talented in a lot of areas. And yeah, I don't know. It's a very curious game, because I feel kind of the same way about TCU. TCU, should be sold on them with the talent that they have and the players that they brought back and all that. But, something's been off with them. So, it's a very intriguing game, because I really don't know what to expect from either one.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was stunned, and I was impressed the fact that they were boat raced by Texas. And even in that game where they blown up 70-35, there were a couple of moments in that game when Columbia came in and they just kept firing away, hit a couple of deep passes. They still didn't win the game. They were blown out in that game. I think it says quite a bit that they went down scratching and clawing up to Morgantown. And again, who knows what happens. But Gary Patterson and TCU 0-1, where Baylor's already played 3 conference games, so TCU has a lot down the road coming up, obviously, to make up for just the one game. The only team in the conference has played one game. But they lost that game to a team that, no matter what's been going on, has been beating Texas 7 of 9. But, there was something missing from them. And give Texas credit for making plays in the clutch to win the game. But TCU kind of threw up on themselves as well. They had the targeting call early that extended a drive. They also had the muff punt when they still led 7-3 at the time. So that, I don't know who they are, but Patterson's usually pretty good about rallying the troops. He tried to do that after the loss to SMU. And on top of that, this would be 3 consecutive losses because of that loss that burns TCU across town to SMU.
I mean, they're only 2-point favorites, and but they are the visiting team, so that does say something that they'd be slightly larger favorites if this game was in Fort Worth, but they are the favorites nonetheless. So I think most people do believe I'd pick TCU to win this game. That's who I'd expect to win this game. And I would almost expect them to have a really nice performance just because of the way the last couple of weeks have gone. But who knows? Like Lubbock in the evening time on homecoming weekend with the team that's, fighting for their head coach's job and is kind of at the point where they've had so many injuries, they're just like, screw it, man. We're just going to go out there and play. I mean, that's their mentality. And I think that's, dangerous for opposing teams. So, if Tech wins today, you got to start really ramping them up a little bit and giving them some credit, because they'll be, 5-1? And, regardless of the Texas loss, like I've been saying since the Arkansas game, maybe Texas is just really good and Arkansas is also really good, and Arkansas was just a bad matchup for them, and it's not indicative of who Texas is really versus, different Big 12 teams. So
yeah, the Arkansas one is probably going to be tough for people to peg, because it wasn't like Arkansas hung around and then you snuck out a win over a better team at the end because of a call or a lucky thing. Arkansas straight dominated Texas, so I think that's what confuses people about Texas. But really, I think maybe you have to kick the Arkansas game out as an outlier. And the same thing for Texas Tech with Texas. Maybe you just kick it out as an outlier. It was a bad matchup. It was a day where Texas was coming off. The last good team they played was Arkansas. They had something to prove, and they went out there and proved it. So.
Yeah, I don't know if that was maybe that was an outlier, Paul, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe Texas is just way better than Texas Tech. Yeah. Maybe Arkansas, if they played Texas Tech, I'm kind of almost sure they would dominate them in similar fashion. So, I just think that's who Arkansas is. And if they played at Arkansas and Texas again today, maybe it's a closer game now, because Texas is rolling with Casey Thompson at quarterback, and it's been a little different for them. And I'm very curious to see him today. and how he performs, and if he's able to connect with his receivers on some of those deep throws, because if he's able to do that, then it's going to be a long day for the OU defense having to worry about that and also simultaneously having to worry about Bijan Robinson.
So today, 11 o'clock, you have Baylor hosting West Virginia. We're going to hear from West Virginia's Jed Drennan. He covers them, sideline reporter for the Mountaineers. And the Texas-Oklahoma game starting at 11. Game day is there right now. And TCU tonight against Texas Tech, the highest-ranked top 5 or 10 teams. You have both Penn State and Iowa in the top 5. They play at Kinnick Stadium in Iowa City. Auburn and Georgia. You have Brigham Young playing Boise State. Those are some of the better games around the country. Those aren't the only ones, but those are some of the better ones. Come back with Jed Drennan. Coming up next, Jed Drennan, he covers West Virginia, and his thoughts about the Mountaineers and Bears. This is Sikkim 365 Radio.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
For a limited time, refinance your vehicle and have 90 days with 0 payments. Only at Genco FCU. Refinancing lowers your rate and you pay less for your car. You can't pass on rates as low as 1.75% for 48 months. Apply online today.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. Go to GencoFCU.org. NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube.
We have spoken with Jed Drenning many different times, sometimes even during the concerns about where the Big 12 was going. Also, of course, his knowledge of West Virginia football, sideline reporter for the radio broadcast. He joins us. 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio. Jed, I got to tell you, when we were about to do our pregame, and I looked at the Texas Tech score at West Virginia, if I would have bet on one game last week, it would have been on West Virginia beating Tech and probably whatever and however they wanted. What happened, man?
Well, I'd start with this. This is why I don't coach. Okay, when you're dealing with 18 to 20-year-old kids, it's wildly unpredictable. You always have concerns that they'll show up flat at the wrong time. I do know that we were still in the locker room in Norman after the game last week. And, we had, for instance, Jordan Leslie walking around and talking to some of our defensive players saying, listen, what we're going to do is watch the tape, put this behind us, and not let it beat us twice, because we all knew it would take some energy to recover from really an emotionally charged setback like that was out there in Oklahoma. And we thought that the kids were ready. It very much seemed that way. But the funny thing is, maybe it's ironic that I'm listening to some of the Baylor post game out of Stillwater, and they sounded like us. They said, what kind of corrections were made at halftime to give you guys a puncher's chance in the second half? Nothing really, other than we weren't as flat. We came out with more energy in the second half. And in large measure, I think that's what we did. You can't afford against a Big 12 opponent to come out flat and spot them a 30-minute head start. Now, to Tech's credit, they made the plays when that opportunity presented itself and dug us in too deep of a hole to overcome. We responded in the second half, but again, that hole was too deep. So there's parallels between how Baylor's game played out last week and how West Virginia's did. Now the question becomes, all right, who bounces back and responds more favorably?
Jed, I know that there's a lot of consternation in Morgantown about Jarrett Dagey, and I know they have Green, the young guy that everybody really wants to see. How close or how bad would things have to get for Neil Brown to pull that trigger and sit Jarrett Dagey down?
Well, here's the great irony of it is I think Jarrett Dagey, in large measure, is coming off the best half of his college career. He threw for 183 yards in the third quarter the other night. He started that second half 18 to 22. I mean, he's the kid that stood up at halftime and provided some leadership when it was really needed with that offense. What you have is a situation where when you're struggling, who's the most popular guy in town? It's always the backup quarterback, right? Now, we got a talented, explosive, high-energy, slippery kid in Garrett, right? But Garrett's not quite the superintendent of the offense at large that Jarrett is. They have different skill sets. There's different things that Garrett can provide, but there's also several things that Jarrett can provide. And I think what Neil's trying to do is strike that balance and go with the two quarterback system, putting each in position to flourish and not asking either one of them to do things they can't do. Okay. But I'm not so sure the light's entirely ready to come on for Garrett yet. He'll let you know when that happens, right? You don't let a kid know, they let you know. I always go back, West Virginia fans, remember how things played out with Pat White. Well, Pat White, his coming out party was that come from behind Louisville game in 2005. Up to that point, he was splitting time, and we were 5-1, and everybody was happy. Nobody was clamoring for Pat White to start. He just looked like a really explosive, dynamic kid who was making plays for us. But it was working. And it wasn't until the other quarterback got hurt in that Louisville game and Pat had to run the show that he responded and said, yes, I am now ready. I'm going to make it obvious to everyone. Well, when young kids are ready, they'll do that. But in the meantime, what you got to do is put them in particular situations, again, that cater to their skill set. And Garrett is a talented kid. He has an escapability that Jarrett doesn't have. He brings a certain level of energy anytime he's on the field. So there's things that you can do with both these kids to help be productive offensively, and I think that's the plan moving forward, unless one of them just absolutely asserts themselves to such an extent that it's obvious to everyone. But until then, if you're trying to win football games, you want to use both of them to the best of your ability. And again, Jarrett's coming off a really dynamic second half that he gave us a chance to potentially come back and win that football game in the second half because of the way he played. Now, he left a couple things on the table in that second half, but by and large, I think, that was a passing grade for him in that second half of football. If you can get more of that, that's promising for the offense.
Jed, Letty Brown came back. He was first team All Big 12 last year. Had a great season, but there's not been much of a run game. I mean, Garrett Green has been a big part of their run game when he's been back there, and outside of that, it's been hard for Letty to find yards. I mean, the Virginia Tech game, the numbers look good, but he also had an 80-yard run in that game that kind of skewed a little bit. Is it the line? Is it the depth? Where do you point to for the problems West Virginia's had in consistently running the football?
I think part of it's continuity. Part of it's the nature in which people are defending us. I always like to say, look, you can't launch a rocket from a rowboat. Now, we're not the rowboat that we were a couple years ago up front. We've made progress, but we're young. So it's a function of those guys repping together. And it's the next step we got to take, and this is the same step we were trying to take at points last year, is running the football. It becomes painfully obvious and apparent that we have to. When the field shrinks, 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, short yardage situations, in the red zone when the field shrinks, you got to be able to push bodies around and really exert your will at those points in games. Now, we haven't been able to as consistently do that as we want, but we're getting there. Again, at least the pieces are now in place. Whereas maybe a couple of years ago, that wasn't entirely the case. The pieces are now in place. It's just a function of, all right, those pieces are pretty young. So there's going to be some growing pains as we work towards this. But, dynamic, Letty's a dynamic, versatile, talent, and you want to do whatever you can to find creative ways to get him the football. But as that unit improves, his game will improve as well. But in the meantime, you got to find some other ways to feed him. And I think that Neil and the offensive staff, Jared Parker and crew, have done a good job of doing that in the pass game as well. I mean, we're on pace to feed the backs in the pass game a little bit more than Neil's offenses traditionally have, and that's a byproduct of that.
Your thoughts about what you've seen? I know you watch what others are doing, and obviously with Baylor this week, but Gary Bohannon, it wasn't the great week. Obviously, offensively, they were not good at all in the first half. Then they made some adjustments, but almost still not enough. Your thoughts about what you see? And it looks like now, Jed, 17-14, 20-17, 30-27 maybe. This is kind of now the new Big 12.
It is. I posted something earlier today. If you go back to 2016, 9 of the 10 teams in the Big 12 allowed more than 425 yards a game defensively. Whereas right now, 9 of the 10 Big 12 teams are allowing fewer than 400. So things have shifted. It's cyclical, right? But how funny is it, guys, that here we have this matchup between one head coach who's a former Mike Leach GA and another head coach who's a former Mike Leach receiver. It doesn't feel like that at all, right? It doesn't feel like that on either sideline, right?
No.
I'm a big Dave Aranda fan. Always have been. I really like the way he approaches things and handles his business. I know our staff does as well. And I think he surrounded himself with some good people on both sides of the football. I'm dating myself, but I actually played against Ron Roberts back in college when he was at UT Martin. I was just looking at a scouting report that Jimbo Fisher put together 30-odd years ago. And here you have this big old Sam linebacker with this intense stare in there. But Ron Roberts has done a great job. It's kind of a sounding board back and forth with Dave Aranda. And, of course, you can't say enough about the job that Jeff Grimes has come in and done, with that RBO offense and being really physical, no nonsense, but mistake-free. You talked about it. When I think of Gary Bohannon, I think of a guy who doesn't put the football in harm's way. He's not going to get you beat. I mean, think about it. The next pick he throws as a Baylor Bear will be the first pick he throws as a Baylor Bear. I mean, what else can you say about that, whether the guy was spot playing or not? At this point in the season, that is remarkable, okay? So they protect the football. It's difficult to knock them off schedule with that wide zone scheme they have. It's all by design. It's a good plan. It's a solid plan. And they have playmakers in key spots. I mean, I look at some of the things that they can do defensively with those different looks they throw at you, and then you put a kid like Bernard in there, as talented and dynamic and explosive as he is, and the versatility that a Petrie brings. I mean, these are NFL guys. And then Dylan Doyle, I mean, sign me up for Dylan Doyle being on my football team. A guy that can smell the football out like that. They got some good football players, and they're not going to beat themselves. I mean, there's a reason that they're ranked as high as they are in turnover margin. That's not an accident. So you got to respect the way they go about handling their business, and I expect them to be very eager for a bounce back opportunity coming off of what happened in Stillwater, because I think they're frustrated like we were.
Yeah, Jed, Aranda and Neil Brown both going so far away from the Mike Leach system is like two guys learning for years how to be pit masters and then opening up salad restaurants.
That's right. That's kind of what it comes down to. That's a good analogy. It's, different people have gone different ways, right? And it's funny because, you see obviously Coach Aranda, working his way to the defensive side and all the accomplishments that he's had on that side of the football. But meanwhile, Neil is a guy that I'd say his strength as a head coach is that he appreciates. And what makes it unusual is he's an offensive guy. Okay, I would almost expect this more from Coach Aranda as a defensive guy. But defensive guys tend to see the game more globally and appreciate how the interconnectivity of the three phases, special teams, how it impacts defense, how defense impacts offense, vice versa. But Neil is an offensive guy. Look, I'm an offensive guy. I'm guilty of the same thing. I want to score. I want to rack up yards. I want to be exciting. But he understands and appreciates sometimes it's all about getting a couple first downs and punting. I mean, sometimes you got to put out a fire for your defense. And for an offensive guy to see the big picture to the extent that he does is really a testament to him. You can't accomplish the things that we did defensively last year. We were the number one ranked Power 5 defense in the country, the first Big 12 team since K-State in '99 to lead the nation in pass defense. That doesn't happen just because of what you're doing defensively. I mean, I always said last year, Jarrett Dagey was our 12th defensive starter. I mean, it takes an offensive approach that caters to the strength of those defenses, and you see that on both sides in this matchup with Coach Aranda and with Coach Brown.
Jed, speaking of that defense, I mean, as you said, they are really nasty, and there's just player after player, whether it's Mesidor or whether it's Alston or, Stills, just on and on and on and on and on. They're not letting teams run the football. They're also defending the pass well. How has this defense cratered at all at times, and how have teams been able to have some success against this Mountaineers defense?
Well, if you noticed, the last couple of weeks, and we have to become a football team that not just do we have a strength, but we can hang our hat on that strength. And I would agree with you. I think we've created a culture and set a standard defensively that I do think our defense is a strength. But the last couple of weeks at the end of the game, things hanging in the balance, we haven't been able to hang our hat on that. We've given up 2 late field goal drives that cost us both those games with things on the line. Now, that ties directly into, I think, what's playing out from a lack of depth standpoint. When you look at some of the names that you talked about front, I'm telling you, they're just as nasty as you explained and described. And what happens is, defensively as a play caller, Jordan Leslie doesn't have to commit as many resources and numbers to the box or flying downhill against the run or even to some extent for a pass rush. So we can drop those resources and numbers into coverage, and you can see how that can be beneficial to you as a defensive play caller because of those guys. But what we lack, and we're still working towards developing that, is the proper or appropriate depth that you need in the Big 12 to play behind. And we have candidates to play behind some of those guys. But right now, they're still developmental type guys, very talented guys, but still in that developmental phase. And defensive play callers are always going to want their best on the field with the game on the line. So what ends up happening, sometimes when you put your best on the field, they're running on a half-empty tank or running on fumes. And I think to some extent, to some degree, that's kind of what you saw in Norman. That's kind of what you saw at the end of last week. So, I'll take those front three or even our front four against anybody. And not to mention the guys on the second and third level that are our starters, but there are certain areas of this defense that we're still working towards developing some depth. And as the season progresses, you certainly hope we find it, because you're going to need it. I mean, what's it supposed to be, 93 degrees on Saturday in Waco?
Yep.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So if you're going to, what better time to distribute your snap count on the defensive side than in that kind of, those kind of conditions. So that's what we're working towards. I mean, those frontline starters, wow. Disruptive, as advertised, everything you talked about. We just got to develop some depth there.
Jed, it's great talking to you, man. Good to see you, and we'll see you Saturday.
All right,
Thanks for your time. Jed Drenning does sideline work for West Virginia. Couple of notes. Arizona State, top 25 last night, beat Stanford 28-10. Then also Houston beat Tulane, the incoming Big 12 teams, Brigham Young, Boise State today. Cincinnati hammered Temple 52-3, and Houston beat Tulane 40-22. Keith kept asking us if we had mentioned that. We did just now. All right, Texas, Oklahoma, 11 o'clock. Texas Tech hosts TCU at 6. Baylor and West Virginia kick off here in about a half an hour. Paul?
I said Baylor 26, West Virginia 17 or something like that. I think that the game's going to be pretty tough. I think Baylor is just a little knows better on offense and gets it done.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it all week. I expect Baylor to win this game, being at home, needing to bounce back. I know West Virginia does as well, but and I also think that maybe West Virginia playing on the road is beneficial to them in some ways. But I'm going to go with Baylor. I like more of what I've seen from them throughout these first few games, and I think it's going to be a close one, but I'll go with the home team.
Yeah, I'm going to say 20-16 Baylor. I do think they have to get Ebner loose, whether it's in a little catch and run or some sort of a special teams play. It will be a turf war, and that's kind of what we see more often than not now in the Big 12. So thank you to a lot of you on the chat room. Gary Lewis keeps asking about getting Tyquan Thornton the ball. Yes, 3 catches, 52 yards. But they had nothing to R.J. Sneed. Ebner, no yards rushing. Abram Smith had the long run on 4th and 1. And other than that, that was pretty much it.
I think Tyquan could have a big role in today's game, but you've got to hit the pass. I mean, and he's got to catch the football. And I know that sounds so stupid and simple, but, I mean, that is what's missing. He's been open, and they can't throw it, accurately, or he's been open and he drops it. So, yeah, I could see him factoring in a big way, but they got to make that connection work.
All right, for Paul Catalina, Armstrong Sims behind the scenes, thank you. Thanks to Chris Fuentes for dropping in with us. The Sikkim 365 tailgate continues in the Brazos parking right across from on MLK off from the stadium. Craig Smoke, I'm David Smoke. Paul back in the postgame after it's over, right here, taking your calls and text and chat. Good night or afternoon, morning on Sikkim 365 Radio 365 Sports.